I've mentioned this before, but I am compelled to warn you to sound the alarm once more that the government is poised to shut down pretty soon. We've got about, 9 days before we've got a shutdown on top of the current apocalypse we are dealing with. Um, Congress, they have until the 11th of December, 10 days before my birthday, if you must know. They have until the 11th of December to come in, swoop in, save the day, and avoid a government shutdown. Now, I've already talked about how I feel about this before. I've related it to this exact same situation that we saw a few months ago, and I've compared how what is happening now needs to be different than what happened then. But I'm not going to bore you with those details again. So, if you want to know, go back and look. I don't know if it was like the episode before the last one or the last one. Just go back and take a listen, and somewhere along the way, you will find that bit of information. But so let's get actually back to the bill that was proposed. Well, it wasn't even a bill. Yeah, it was proposed yesterday. It was actually a bill. Let me tell you, it had three main things in it, right? It had $288 billion that was designated under the Paycheck Protection Program to aid small businesses. Y'all already know. I have said before, and I shall say it again, and I will say until we see something better, that when you look at the many forms of stimulus that we have seen over the last few months, one of the least effective, one of the most ineffective forms of stimulus that we have seen has been the PPP. Why? Well, I'm not going to bore your ears off because I've talked about this several times. But when you look at who it was supposed to help and how it was supposed to help, and you look at the dates that were, I mean, there was just so much. You know, all people had to do was attempt to get people to come back to work. They get to, you know what? I'm not going to rehash that. Go back. I don't know how long ago. And if it might do you really well to just go back and listen to every episode you have not heard, because somewhere along the way, you will find that bit of information. So, again, you had $288 billion that are designated, or that were designated under this 908 gazillion, quadrillion. You don't even know, like, you're just dealing with so much money, right? Under this bill that was proposed on Tuesday, you have $288 that was proposed to go to one of the least effective forms of stimulus when compared to the other forms of stimulus. Now, and let me tell you something. I just heard, my time just kind of all just melds into each other. I don't know if it was this morning. I start my days early, by the way, about 2, 3 in the morning. I don't know if it was this morning or last night. Somewhere along the way, I came across information that basically said that, look, when it came to the PPP, even though it was really designated for small businesses, a majority of the funds that actually went to businesses that technically aren't classified as small businesses. I can't remember if it was only like, please don't quote me on this percentage, but I don't know if it was like 25%, maybe. Might be generous and say 50%. I doubt it was 50%, 10%. I don't know. But it was not as high of a percentage as most people probably would be led to believe, given that the description of the PPP was that it was to aid small businesses. It didn't do, even based upon the name and description, it didn't do what it was kind of set out to do. So in addition to that, moving on, what we had in the proposal from yesterday, and that bill that was put up yesterday, is we had $160 billion that was allocated to state and local governments. Now, when you compare that $160 billion to the $288 billion that was designated to the least effective form of stimulus, the Paycheck Protection Program loans, and then another form of stimulus, and I'll talk about here in a second, that was lumped in with that, this $160 billion for state and local government relief, that is, the state and local governments receive the least amount of aid in this package. Out of these kind of three, there are other things. These aren't just the only three things, but these are like the three big things. Out of the big things here, you've got, this is the thing that is receiving the least amount of funds. And quite frankly, I'm not saying that they need to receive the most, but I really wouldn't expect them to receive the least, because state and local governments need a lot of help. I mean, heck, we're hearing in recent days about transportation agencies that, lo and behold, are like, look, we've seen a reduction in ridership, and we're having to take all these extra measures, and we didn't get funding that, for instance, the airline industry got. We didn't get funding that, we didn't get funding like everybody else, and we are suffering. You have agencies that are saying, look, we're going to have to discontinue weekend service, we're going to have to discontinue night service, we're going to have to cut some routes. This is going to mean jobs are going to go away. This is going to mean not just jobs for our drivers, but people who depend on our buses to get to jobs that they have. They're going to lose that access, and when they do, most likely they can't afford a car. So boom, there goes their employment too. This is this trickle down effect. I know we only like to talk about trickle down effect when we're talking about, the wealthy, just showering us with the many gifts of money that they give us. But this is truly an example of kind of trickle down economics. Like, if we do not help them, if we do not help these transportation agencies, it's not just their employees that are suffering. It's also people who depend on those services. That's affecting other forms of the economy. So that is the second thing. The third thing that I want to point out is, again, $180 billion that is supposed to go to fund that extra $300 per week in supplemental unemployment benefits through March of 2021. Now, here's what I have to say about that. Supplement is okay. I have been pushing for, especially when we had that $600 per week, totally pushing for that. We saw in the numbers, we saw in the data that there was an actual positive effect on the economy with that happening. But here's the deal. In the words of our president-elect, here's the deal. I honestly think that more important than giving that supplemental unemployment money in this moment is extending the PUA, which is that program that allows gig workers, self-employed, etc., people who wouldn't normally qualify for unemployment. I would more support seeing an extension of that, for instance, through March, even just at a basic level. Why? Because what we are poised to see is how many millions of people come the end of this month. Now that we're here, dun dun dun, the end of this month, we are going to see millions of people just boop, pop off the rolls. And what was the warning that I gave to Democrats about letting that happen? The warning I gave, and I will warn once again, if you are a Democrat, listen up. The error that you make in allowing the PUA to lapse and just saying to yourself, you know what? Well, as soon as January 20th comes around, we've got President Joe Biden on board and he is going to do X, Y, and Z. What comes out every month? Job numbers. I've already talked about how these job numbers are skewed, right? What did I talk about? I talked about how people aren't counted as unemployed once they stop receiving unemployment. And there is a maximum amount of time that a person can receive unemployment. This program ends the end of December. Once they stop receiving unemployment, what then is going to happen to the numbers? Everything is going to appear to be sunshine and rainbows. It's going to appear as if everybody got jobs. And that's not what happened. What happened was people are no longer being counted, not because they actually got jobs, but because they ran out of time. So in letting that happen, what Democrats will set themselves up for is they will set themselves up for a tough time, especially if they do not take the Senate. They'll set themselves up for a tough time trying to negotiate with Republicans, because Republicans will say, see, no, look at the numbers. The numbers are wonderfully better. We don't need to do anything. Look at how the numbers are now, even though they are totally fudged, and what these people are willing to do or not do. Do you really think if it automatically if people just disappear into the ether and appear to just magically get employed and be contributing members to society in this economy again, just magically, do you think that they're really going to do anything? Absolutely not. But not only are Democrats going to have a problem with justifying to the other side a need to stimulate the economy in an effective and an efficient manner, they are going to have a problem trying to justify that to people who don't understand the actual unemployment numbers, who don't understand on its face value that these numbers that we see aren't actually reality. I've told people all the time, when it comes to, just generally speaking, when it comes to the need for economic stimulus, don't listen to what these pundits are saying. Hell, don't even listen to what I am saying. Listen to your surroundings. Do you have family that are unemployed? Do you have friends that are unemployed? Do you have people who, or yourself, who've seen a reduction in hours? That is how you determine, look, is this real or is it not? Perception is reality, right? But so for this reason, and I'm going to end here on the PUA, this is why, again, sure, I think it's great if they give that $300 per week. But I think, again, they will do themselves a disservice. They will do the American people a disservice, and they will do their genuine efforts to see effective, efficient, and sufficient COVID-19 economic stimulus and relief a disservice should they allow PUA to just bloop, fall off and get better. It almost makes you wonder, could that be kind of one of the motivational factors in what we're seeing from the right, namely Mitch McConnell, in his efforts to deny stimulus, because he knows all I've got to do is hold out. Because if I hold out, these people are going to magically disappear, and then I can say, oh, it got better, it really got better, everything is wonderfully great, and we don't need to stimulate the economy again. Like, is that what we're going to see? I didn't even know my voice could get that deep. Go on, girl. So, look, I'm going to be very frank with you. There are no stimulus checks. I said it before. There are no stimulus checks in this proposal that came out yesterday. This isn't perfect. This is not perfect. In my perfect world, I would have totally pushed for not just a one-time $1,200 check, but recurring $1,200 checks for everybody. Everybody. But that not in there, me dealing in reality, me not dealing with me being president, me not dealing with me being a member of the House or a member of the Senate, me being who I am okay with there not being stimulus checks in there. What? Yes, I'm okay with that. Is it my preference? No, I am okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm okay because at a bare minimum, and I said this before a few episodes back, when I mentioned how Nancy Pelosi, now is the time for her. I wasn't pushing for her in the past to kind of compromise. I was really pushing for her to stand her ground. And I wouldn't change that even in this moment when I look back. Now is the time for her to make some sort of concession, because now we know the outcome of the election. We know, despite what some might claim, that Joe Biden is going to be our next president. And so there are a lot of things that he can do, even if the unfortunate thing happens and Mitch McConnell keeps his crown over there in the Senate. There are some things that Joe Biden can do, our president to be, our president-elect. He can do some things through his executive action. Will they be as great as if, the entire Congress could come together, House and Senate, and bring something to the president and make? No, but he can still do something. And for that reason, again, I think now is the time, considering also the rise in COVID cases. I talked last episode about how COVID is on the rise. We're seeing that. We're seeing just, I mean, have you guys seen those pictures and videos of those food banks where just cars are just for miles and thousands of cars? It's heartbreaking. Absolutely. I volunteered at a food bank on a regular basis every week. Don't do it anymore. I don't unfortunately have the time in my schedule, but when I had the time, I did it every week. And we were a small kind of, faith-based food bank, and it was a production doing that every week. I can't imagine being in a position where you have thousands of people who are dependent. Their children are dependent upon you for sustenance. That is horrifying. Not just for the people who have that pressure to make sure they serve as many people as they can with the resources that they have available to them, but it's also horrifying to those people who maybe even for the first time had to go and get in that line. When I look at, I'm going to close with this. When I look at the proposal, the bill that was proposed yesterday, this 908 trillion gazillion banana gillion proposal, this bipartisan proposal that was brought to the table yesterday, it's not perfect by any means. But the one thing that I think that we all need to keep in mind is that we have a bit of knowledge that we did not have months ago when we passed the CARES Act. When we passed the CARES Act, we operated under the assumption that the pandemic would go away within weeks. We know that it's not going away within weeks. And so with that bit of knowledge, I think that as Americans, as well as people who are in Congress representing average everyday Americans, I think you need to keep in mind that while this bipartisan bill is not perfect, at the very least, it can serve as a bridge to provide support until we get President-elect Joe Biden sworn in at 12 o'clock on January 20th. This bipartisan bill could really carry us over until the end of Q1 2020. It really could. And I think that people shouldn't overlook that.